Formula E has visited 24 different countries in its history, and this weekend will be adding a 25th to that list with the addition of a street circuit in Japan, specifically in Tokyo. A circuit that I'm very much hoping doesn't get added to this series in the near future. However, in the most recent season of Formula E gone by, the series visited 3 new locations. South Africa with the awesome Cape Town circuit that I've already covered in this series, much to my disappointment, and Brazil with the Sao Paulo street circuit, which, at the moment, seems to be going strong, and may that continue. The third location, meanwhile, was in a market that Formula E had long wanted to get a foothold in, and that was India. Not too much of a surprise given some of the sponsors that the series has, and also given how we have a couple of Indian-based teams in Mahindra and Jaguar. Delhi and Mumbai were a number of rumoured locations in the running to host a race, before Hyderabad was settled as the destination for Formula E's long-hoped Indian adventure. As far as tracks go, here are the details of the Hyderabad street circuit. 2.8 km / 1.7 miles in length, with 18 turns, of which 7 go to the left and 11 go to the right. Constructed at a cost of roughly £14.25 million / $18 million, and was also set in a place where vehicles aren't usually meant to be. In essence, it wasn't disrupting any traffic areas. Well, circuit-wise at least. Not sure about the congestion coming into the circuit perimeter, especially with a capacity of 35,000 people. Now there is one huge plus point with this track that I immediately appreciate. It has actual corner names. No, old turn 7 is like this. Oh, the characteristics of turn 15 are like that. No, it has a little bit of personality to it. Sure, these corner names aren't ever going to etch themselves in the history books, but that's not the point. Anyway, the circuit itself, starting with a unique first corner. The entry to it leads you to believe that you can take a lot of speed into the turn, although in reality, whilst you do have a lot of paved road going through the corner, you're only meant to use a portion of the track that's about as wide as a Formula E car. In fact, to be honest, I'm being a bit kind, because if I freeze frame it here, you can just cut across this painted area on the inside and just bypass what is in essence a bit of a chicane. The layout just looks so strange, and to me just ruins what could have been a really awesome opening fast sweeper to the start of the lap. I'm sure there were reasons for this not being a fast sweeper, but even so, just because there are reasons for it doesn't mean that I'm obliged to like it. Then it's down an incredibly long not straight, going across the start line, but not the finish line, towards the Lumbini hairpin. A place which, perhaps unsurprisingly, was by far the most plausible place on the track to get a successful overtake done. It was also a place where you could get very unsuccessful overtakes done. Also, without wishing to get sidetracked, but going back to the position of the start line, whilst it is perhaps the most logical place to put the start line, it's possibly one of the worst from a fan perspective. No grandstands or easily accessible viewing areas around the part of the race where the most people will get their recording devices out. It may seem like a small detail, but it just made the start look as though there was no atmosphere at all. A rather straightforward set of simple right and left flicks exiting the hairpin bring you onto another not straight that's nowhere near as long as the previous one. That doesn't mean though that the braking zone for the upcoming 90-degree left-hander was easy. Oh, and yes, of course this circuit has to have at least one 90-degree turn. And the good news for all of you, depending on whether you just like to hear me say that term again, is that we are far from done with them. We now come to the most technical part of the track, with a barrage of corners coming at you incessantly. Turns 7, 8, 9 and 10 make up what is called the Mashan tree section. A really difficult section from a technical aspect, with an open left-hander leading to a double apex right-hander, where you're braking whilst turning. Very easy to run a bit wider than you want to at this section, especially as the double apex right-hander becomes progressively tighter the further you go round it. It's then an open left-hander, with turn 11 following almost immediately after that. Or, as it was called on this circuit, Devil's Den. I don't know why it was called that, not entirely sure what's so devilish about a long medium-speed left-hander, but either way. In fact, to be honest, I don't know how any of these corners got the names that they got, but they do seem rather random. Particularly as we're now heading to the turns 12, 13 and 14 complex, which was called Giant Wheel. If anyone knows the origins of these names, then please do say in the comments section. Anyway, this portion of the circuit was a really tricky complex. A long sweeping right-hander, which you had to brake in the middle of to try and make the very important apex of the sharply tightening exit of the right-hander. Brake too little or get the rear end unsettled and you'll be going down a temporary escape road chicane. A slight kink to the left brings you to a fairly typical 90-degree right-hander. This slight kink after turn 14 is called Passport. Turns 16, 17 and 18 conclude the lap. This section is called the Cinema Chicane, although there's no other way of dressing this up other than its three 90-degree corners. Starting with a slow right-left chicane, before a slightly more open 90-degree corner rounds off the lap, as you then head onto the straight that has the finish line, but not the start line like I referred to earlier. Meanwhile, the pit lane entry is in not too bad of a place, being positioned on the right-hand side of the slow turn 16 and 17 chicane. Yet with that, we have completed a lap of the Hyderabad street circuit, or at least we have in its Formula E guise, because what I've so far not shown or told you is that the track had a slightly different configuration not too long before Formula E turned up here. For the Indian Racing League, the main, and to be honest only major difference with their track was that the first corner was a fast open sweeper. Yet for Formula E, they'd hoped that their visit to India would be for the long term. A key market, with major local sponsors supporting their series, trying to reach a new audience. Their long-term hopes, however, were scuppered, as the series hasn't returned since, and by the looks of it aren't going to be back to Hyderabad anytime soon. The series says that with the race not taking place in 2024 like it was hoped, there had been a breach of contract. Furthermore, the organisers of the Formula E Championship said they were considering its position and what steps it may take. The Formula E CEO, Jeff Dodds, said, "It is deeply frustrating that we cannot build on the success of the inaugural race last year, which delivered almost $84 million in positive economic impact to the region." I think it's safe to say that Formula E aren't too pleased with this outcome, so I think it's fairly certain that this event, or at least this track, won't come to reality once again. However, there were other issues that impacted this circuit, one of which was how the first round of the 2022 Indian Racing League had to be cancelled rather suddenly because of a crash, and technical failure jeopardised the sporting event. What that was, I'm not entirely sure. All I do know is that it's not an ideal thing to have happen. Either way, as far as tracks go, I don't mind it, but for me the first corner does bring the rating down. Maybe it was necessary, but even so, the strange layout of this chicane that's not a chicane behaves more like a really confusing fast sweeper. It's almost like the corner itself doesn't know what it wants to be, caught in two minds as to whether it wants to be a chicane or not. And yes, it does sound like I'm giving a piece of asphalt some sort of feelings, but you know what I'm trying to do with that. There are some cool sections to this track, but on the whole, I just don't find it particularly interesting. Although I do really like the fact that they decide to give the corners proper names, even if they do seem on the surface to be rather random ones. However, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Would your ranking of this track be quite high? Or do you think it was quite bad? I'll round off this video quickly. If you did enjoy this video though, then I would be enormously appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons. Until the next video though, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.